Hello there, beautiful internet and you fantastic creatures of the beyond. So I just wasted 2 hours of my life making this video, well, previous video, and I didn't realize I left the sound of the background super loud and I was playing music and the music just muffled all of my voice and the pain is unbearable. And I did quite a complicated video, but I'm just gonna summarize it. I'm not gonna redo it. So let's see what we have here. Well, basically, I have 4 buttons and this rectangle, but this rectangle is just so we can kind of see the color that we're going to apply. And very important, I've placed this within the boundaries of the page because we are going to do something interesting with it. So let's disable this for now. And why do we have 4 buttons? Because we have 4 states. So let me exemplify. So right now, although they're a little bit overlapped, so it's difficult to see, but anyway. This is the button up stage. Then this is the hover stage. Then we are changing into the button down stage, and this is the hover for the button down stage. All good and nice. And we can use this on any website or whatever we want to use it to. But did you know that SVGs can actually run actions and animations and whatnot directly into them? Perfect. So let me explain how we're going to make this become into... Well, let me just drag it into this. So right now we're having the SVG directly, and look what happens. There is also a sound, but let me see if I can stop the music for a moment. There is an MP3 playing when you click the button. I don't know if it's very audio viable on the recording right now. Let me try it again. It's there. Subtle, but it's there. Anyway, so from this, I went to this. Now, the big difference is that this is a HTML page, well, HTML, whatever, the same thing. And this one is accessing the SVG directly. This one is importing it. So we'll go over the code in just a second. But before we do that, how do we create this effect of clicking and switching between and hovering over the button and so on and so forth? Well, we are using JavaScript. But how do we import the JavaScript? Well, there are 2 ways. We go into the document, properties, and here we have scripting. And right now I have it imported, but it's not displaying over here. But the way you import it, you import an external script, which I have done, or you embed a script. So basically you create a script over here and then you write the code here. But I find it more difficult and tedious to write it in here and then editing it through the XML because it's quite compact. So having an external file is much more efficient. So just apply it through this version of the external script. And then in your XML, it's going to show up here. In this case, it has the ID script 20, and it's referencing the location of my script. Usually it's gonna pull the full path over here. I just shorten it to like we did in the past. So it just says that it's in the same folder. So I'll just gonna show you. Right now I have 4 files in here. I have the SVG, the MP3, the HTML page, and the script, the JavaScript, which I have referenced over here. An important thing to do, although I haven't done it so here, is to always put your script at the bottom of your code. And you can just move it like so. Or you can just edit the SVG directly and copy this line of code all the way to the bottom. And that is because in web pages, web browsers in general read the text, the code from the top to the bottom. So the script should usually be the last thing you load. But it's, in my case, I have done something a bit different. So even if we have the script all the way on the top, I'm calling the script specifically to do things. So it's gonna work the way I set it up. I'm not gonna bother moving it to the bottom, too many clicks. So let's have a dive into the script file and see how the script is composed. So we have quite a few lines of code here, but don't get afraid if you don't understand them. I'm gonna try to explain them in short. Basically, these two lines say that when we load the SVG directly, in this case this file, without the background, it's going to become responsive. You see, if I'm shrinking or making the browser a little bit thinner, it's going to respect these boundaries. If I remove this, and if I refresh, now it's not respecting the size. The same thing happens, well, actually it doesn't happen here, because here I have made a slight change, and we'll verify this in a moment. So this only applies to the SVG directly. Now, this function, there are two functions in here. The first function does two things. This first part is basically hiding all of the layers. And this second part is re-enabling a specific layer that we identify through an ID. We're gonna input an ID through here, and it's going to translate in here, and then it's going to display inline. And this second function is playing the MP3 file from the folder. Now a little in depth of this function. Basically, this query is looking inside the XML, and we have a parent here which is called SVG. So it's basically taking all the SVG, and then it's looking for the tag G. In this case, these are the G's over here. You see? So from the SVG, it's taking all of the G's, and it makes sure that they are in the group mode layer. Now we call layer everything that we put in here, but in reality, only these are layers. These 4 elements here. Well, aside from this one, I should even delete it. So these are the 4 main layers. They are global layers. These are sub layers. So basically, there is a specific group mode. This group mode is looking only for the global layers. Then it's going with a loop. Well, it's cycling through all of them, and it hides them all. And then we just re-enable them with this inline option by specifying the ID. Now, maybe these two should be all the way up. Oh, come on, move up. Actually, I don't know why I'm even bothering. I have these things. No, it's not working. That's weird. Okay, now it's working. Okay, so these are set in the correct order. So the top one is gonna be button up, then the hover for the up, down, and hover for the down. Now, one important thing to notice here in the XML is that I have given the same ID as the label. So that's very important. Rename the ID with the same name as in the label. Next, we're going to have a look into the properties, which is over here. I know there's quite a lot of steps, but don't get afraid of this part. So we're gonna select this, and right here we have interactivity, which is a button. It's a bit hidden all the way to the bottom, so you have to click it in the properties. And then you're going to have these options: on click, on mouse over, on mouse out, on mouse down. All of them do specific things. So for the button up, the first thing I did was to go through the function and specify that I want to get button up hover. So basically, when I'm going with the mouse over, it's going to hide everything except the one that's called hover up. And this other part with this style cursor pointer is that you see the mouse cursor is transforming into the hand. This is basically doing that. So when we are doing this, exactly it's what it means, on mouse over. So basically I'm taking the mouse, I am going over the button, and it's doing these two things. It's hiding all of the other buttons and only showing us button up hover and displaying the cursor as a pointer. Perfect. Now if we go on the hover, this one does things a bit differently. So on mouse over, it's still displaying things as a pointer. Then on mouse out, this means that if I'm going with the mouse over, it's displaying the button. If I'm taking the mouse away, it's going back to its initial state. So basically I'm telling it, when I'm taking the mouse away, go back to button up. When I'm putting the mouse over, go on button up hover. Taking it away, button up. Putting it on, button up hover. Perfect. Now there is one more thing here. When we click on the button hover, yeah, on this second button, we are hiding everything, but then we are only displaying button down. And we are also calling play click, which is the sound of the clicking of the MP3. So when I click this, it plays the sound and it moves to button down. And for this other two with the button down, it basically does what these two are doing, but in this case it's using button down hover. And for this one, it's telling when I'm taking the mouse away, it's going back to button down. When I'm doing the click, it's going back to button up. And it's also playing the sound, and it's also showing as a pointer. So you see, bam, bam. It's like a toggle. But they're basically 4 buttons. So first action is when I'm going with the mouse over. Then second phase is when I click. Third phase is when I take my mouse away. Sometimes the browser just hangs on to the transition. So this is a SVG browser thing. It's not necessarily the SVG itself. But yeah, whatever. And then the last part is when I click again and it turns back to the original state. So easy peasy. Just like this. And it sounds really, really cool. So I know there are quite a few steps to go through, but it gives you so much versatility. So right now we are on the SVG file directly. Now let's talk about what happens if I want to import this into an actual website or into an actual page. So the way to do this is, well, I haven't written all the HTML code, obviously. I just focused on the basic styles. So for the body, I have set up the background color. In this case, it's this dark color. And then I have said I want to call this object with the data awesome button SVG. And in order for it, so right now, if I remove these two elements from the object, this is going to, again, not respect my the size of my window. And we can kind of hack it with JavaScript, but I simplified it, you know? So right now here it respects it because it's looking for these two lines of code, but these two lines of code cannot affect the HTML because this is a separate file and we're calling the SVG into it. So to circumvent that, I just added these two lines, which is basically the same thing, but in this case we're just forcing the object itself. So yeah, it's just a representation of the SVG. Basically, we're dragging the SVG here, but in order to embed it into the HTML and add other things through the HTML, like for example, now if I want to add text here, whatever is gonna probably be black, so we're not gonna see it. It's over here, you see? We can add elements outside of the SVG. Of course, we can add it through the SVG. We can influence the SVG directly through other elements that we put in here into the HTML. And then we activate through the JavaScript. Let's say we're gonna make another button that when we click here, it's gonna change the color of this. Anything is possible. That JavaScript has so much versatility, you won't believe. But there's one caveat to this. Don't copy paste code of JavaScript like crazy. Like, this is safe to copy paste because it's not doing anything wild. It's just hiding some layers and playing a sound. That's all, and resizing the SVG based on the size of the page of the window. But you could potentially create scripts that upload files, that edit other elements, that even create new files within the server. Right now I'm running everything here locally on the computer, so it's not gonna do anything. But if you have it on a shared server or on a VPS or a dedicated server or whatever, if you do not sanitize your code, you do not format it correctly, you do not set it up accordingly with all the standards that are with the newer versions of JavaScript, you might open yourself to vulnerabilities and attacks, and nasty people can come on your server and do nasty things, which you do not really wish to have there. So yeah, like with all coding, be very, very careful how you set it up. And again, I think it's much better to separate your code, put, like in this case, I didn't put everything into the SVG. In the case of the JavaScript, so having it compartmentalized is much more easier to manage, and it's also easier to edit. Because right now, if I'm gonna look into over here at the source code, I can only see the object itself, see? And basically what is displayed in my HTML page. The browser automatically creates some HTML tags even though I didn't write them. But if I'm gonna click on the SVG, oh, actually not from here. If I'm gonna go into the SVG directly, I can also see the source code of this SVG over here. So right now I can see that in my SVG I'm calling this script, and this script is calling script.js from the same folder. So if I want to see the script.js, all I have to do is go here and type script.js, and I can see the script itself. So anything is accessible through the browser. That is why I'm saying be careful how you write your code. Make it as clean as possible, as safe as possible, and avoid any crazy copy pasting, especially if you don't know how to interpret the code. But yeah, this is just by the by. Of course, you have to understand how coding works to write it efficiently. So I'll put this on the drive. You guys can take it and download it and play around with it. Make your own buttons. You can do a lot of things with JavaScripting in SVG. Maybe even create games if you want. Actually, I did see some people doing some interesting experiments with interactable objects and colors and things like that. Even changing colors. Basically, you can either directly do it through the JavaScript or you can do it. There is also another coding language aside from JavaScript called Smil, S-M-I-L. I never used it. I don't know how it looks like, but it's there. So you can even combine JavaScript with Smil and do magic. Okay, I'm gonna end the recording here because my poor life, 2 hours lost. Anyway, so I hope you guys understand what I did here and can kind of reproduce it. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye 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 bye.